Hello and welcome to ModKit. In this episode, we look at the closing chapter of the Mass Effect trilogy, Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3 brings an end to Commander Shepard's storyline, as well as bringing new multiplayer functionality to the game. When combined with improvements to graphics, this gives a great overall package. The first section will cover getting the game to run, including save game importing and basic configuration. We'll then move on to more advanced INI modifications, followed by additional post-processing and texture mods. Then NVIDIA and AMD specific tweaks, and finally a showcase of all the mods installed. The first thing you'll need to do is get your copy of the game. Mass Effect 3 is only available to launch through Origin, along with all of its DLC. So you'll need to open an EA account so you can download the game. Download and install Mass Effect 3 to your drive. Once downloaded, you can find the game directory by going to the Origin client, pressing Origin, followed by Application Settings, then click Advanced, where you'll find the address of the game. Mass Effect 3 also has a lot of DLC, some of which is multiplayer and free to download, others can be unnecessary. Because of this, I've given a suggestion list, which will be seen later in the video. To purchase, download and install DLC, go to the Origin client. Right-click Mass Effect 3 and choose Game Details. Below here you'll see the different DLCs available for the game. DLC such as Resurgence, Earth, and Retaliation can be downloaded and installed without purchase, as well as the extended cut. Other DLC can be purchased by pushing the Buy Now button. After going through the purchase process, you can then install the DLC. DLC such as Citadel is great for people who enjoyed the characters of the trilogy, while the Omega DLC brings you back to places from the previous games. This next step will involve starting the game through its game launcher. This can be found by going to the Mass Effect 3 directory, followed by Binaries, then Mass Effect 3 config. From here, go to the Video tab, then change Windowed to full screen, Window mode to normal, Aspect ratio to your aspect ratio, Resolution to your max resolution, Anti-aliasing to on or off depending on your preference, Motion blur to on or off depending on your preference, Dynamic shadows to on, Number of cinematic lights to 3, Spherical harmonic lighting to on, and anisotropic filtering to 16 times. Then go to Mass Effect 3 and save changes. Before we finally start the game, if you're importing your Mass Effect 2 saves, check that they are in the location specified here. At this point we want to start the game to make sure everything is working and to change some settings. When you get to the main menu, click the Extras button, followed by Options. Go through the options and customize them to your tastes, making sure you check Gameplay, Narrative, Mouse, and Sound mostly. Settings such as mouse dampening should be set to off, and settings such as dynamic range should be set to high. This next part involves the more advanced INI modification. First go to the BioWare directory located under your username, then Documents and BioWare. Then open Mass Effect 3, BioGame, and Config. From here open gamersettings.ini in a text editor. Find the System Settings section and add the values listed in the description and the video to the bottom. If you find low performance in your game, one of the first values to turn down would be the MaxShadowResolution. You can choose values such as 2048 instead. Once you're done, save the file and exit. In this part of the guide, we'll start modifying the game with new and improved textures. Bear in mind that this can take a long time to install and download, and the tools you will need are in the description, including ME3 Explorer and 7-Zip. You will also need a lot of free disk space to be able to back up and install the mods, as well as a GPU with a large amount of VRAM. If you're able to meet most of these requirements, back up your game first. Make a copy of the Mass Effect 3 directory in the Origin Games folder. Select the downloaded texture files, then right-click, hover over 7-zip, then choose Extract Here. Allow any overwrites. When finished, go into each of the new folders and copy the .tpf file to the main directory. This should leave you with a large list of .tpf files. Next, we move on to extracting the Mass Effect 3 Explorer. Right-click the file and extract it using 7-zip. Then copy the resulting folder to your Mass Effect 3 directory. Open the new folder, then start me3explorer.exe. When started, choose Developer Tools, then T-Explorer. At the dialog box, choose Yes, then choose OK. This process can take 30 minutes plus. If the process finishes successfully, you should see Tree Constructed Ready at the bottom. Next, we go to Tools and TPF DDS Tools. Next, click Load TPF, then select all the TPF folders you extracted earlier, and choose Open. Wait again for this process to finish, then choose Analyze with T-Explorer. After waiting once again, choose Auto Fix and Install to finish the process. The final step involves extracting the DLC patch files. Extract the file using 7-zip. Then copy the two DLL files to the binaries Win32 folder in the Mass Effect 3 directory. Overwrite any as necessary. You have then completed the texture pack installation. The next mod, ME Cinema, adds additional post-processing to the game. Because it can be down to personal preference, this installation is optional. To install ME Cinema, download the files, extract the contents, then copy the contents of the ME3 folder to the binaries Win32 folder in the Mass Effect 3 directory. The next recommended change is to open the enb_mastereffects.ini file and change the two values below to 0. This removes the letterboxing and the noise effect from the ENB. You will also need to disable the in-game overlay. To do this, right-click Mass Effect 3 in the Origin client, then click Game Properties, then check the Disable checkbox. When starting the game, ENB should now appear in the top left corner. The effects can be toggled using Shift and F12. Effects such as supersampling and ambient occlusion can be enabled by using NVIDIA and AMD specific configurations. These can have a major effect on the fidelity of the game. For NVIDIA users, you'll have to use NVIDIA Inspector. Install NVIDIA Inspector. Then open the profile settings. Go to the Mass Effect 3 profile. Then change the anti-aliasing compatibility bit to the one provided. Change anti-aliasing setting to 2x multisampling, then transparency multisampling to 2x sparse grid supersampling. If you have performance issues, you might want to reduce this. To enable ambient occlusion, change the ambient occlusion compatibility bit to the one provided. Then change ambient occlusion settings to high quality and ambient occlusion usage to enabled. Then apply the changes. For AMD users, you'll need to download and install Radeon Pro. Choose the Add Profile button at the top, then select the Mass Effect 3.exe. Once loaded, tick Anti-aliasing followed by Override Application Settings. You can also scroll down to tick Ambient Occlusion. Mass Effect 3 acts as the closing game of the trilogy, and deserves being played at its best. With massive improvements to texture quality, and the improvements to anti-aliasing and ambient occlusion, a modded playthrough of Mass Effect 3 should act as the definitive closing edition of Mass Effect. Thanks for watching.